Hello. I'm here to talk about an employee performance evaluation system known as ranking and rating. Quick poll, how many in the room, either as a manager or an independent contributor, know what ranking and rating is or have, oh wow, this is going to be an interesting discussion. How many have been subjected to it as an independent contributor? Because there's going to be a differentiation between a manager doling it out and a recipient that has to take that message, that rating. So think about that as you consider the material. Quickly, so it won't burn up a lot of time, you're familiar with it. The system, it is controversial. There is a lot of research on it. It's highly criticized, and it's the system that measures, it's intended to measure employee performance. In theory, it is said to differentiate high-performing versus low-performing employees. And all of the research out there, there's just overwhelming evidence how this process is riddled with inherent biases. Top objective for companies, we know, we've talked about it. Raman's presentation just addressed this, retaining talent. So if a system is intended to be implemented so that it can make that differentiation, identify that talent, then companies make an assumption that they're going to retain that talent. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk about basically my experience, quickly why I picked this, what it is, we'll cover it, what are the intended benefits of ranking and rating, what are the biases that come to life, and what are the unintended consequences. We'll have a Q&A. I'd like to, as I go through the presentation, have you ask for quick clarifications, but save the bulk of the meaty questions for the end. And then we're going to talk about the next steps. Me. So I'm not going to be fired. I am a consultant now that I was a part of an organization, a large multinational. We can state names, many big multinational companies. I was with Intel Corporation, and this is a system that was in place. I managed to get through the system. There were equity awards. There's a lot of positive benefits, but I come into this research project, and I didn't really question what went on behind closed doors. And so what I did in this is I took the prior experience that I had, and I put it against the backdrop today of what the process, what the impact really is of this process on workforces. So quickly, what is it? We've talked about it's the evaluation system, the differentiation. These are the key salient points. You as a manager, as a company, want to make that differentiation, and the intent to reward talented workers. So what you do is you group employees as peers that have similar roles. And once you identify those roles, you have a group of people then that will be ranked top, bottom, and middle. So high, middle, and low. And a top rating basically to the company, to the management, it signals a high performer, and a bottom rating signals a low performer. So, and managers conduct this process in confidential meetings. It does not have transparency, and it does not have an open style of communication. Basically what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. You're going to send a message to an employee that's either you're great, mediocre, or you're trash, and then they don't really get to hear why, because it's confidential, and they just have to basically swallow the pill.
So correct me on this ranking system. Isn't there a certain number that you can assign to each one of those categories?
Yes, you have a number system. So the intended benefits, again, differentiating between high and low performing, the basic assumption is that it ferrets out the underperforming employees. And it identifies and retains the top talent. So you've got this numerical assignment that translates into assigning your top and your underperforming. So you're sending that message, but you're assigning that, you're grading those people, and the consequences are real for doing that. Because what that consequence is it does then set up, based on that number for that employee, where you fall in that spectrum, or will you be rewarded or will you be punished? So if you happen to punish the wrong people, and again, you're looking to retain talent, identify it, you've got a big problem. So, and it's also intended to address performance and promotions. The biases. The number one bias, and the research is gleaned from top companies that use it, Intel, General Electric, Jack Walsh, he was the biggest proponent of this force distribution system from GE CEO. Intel, Microsoft, a number of big multinational companies that took this system on. So surveys from employees that were subjected to this were called in and part of this research. Then you have Forbes magazine, you have a number of magazines that publish the studies, and there's overwhelming data that while there are many biases, we'll go through them up here, the biggest bias is it becomes about visibility. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Who talks louder, who does better presentations, who gets up in a room full of people. Maybe there's a really quiet person that's super bright. He's going to invent the next breakthrough technology, but he wasn't as vocal and visible, so he fell lower in this spectrum. So the biases becomes about the vocal people. The squeaky wheel get the grease. The introverted people, they're less noticed. There are also other inherent biases I did not address in this presentation, but there's biases against gender, race, favoritism of workaholics. There may be a single person that'll put in a 12-hour day, but a single parent that has to leave, pick kids up from school. And biases come in the form of assumptions from managers. We all come with biases. We need to be aware. The unintended harmful consequences of this system, the measurement is artificial. It is a numbers application. It is stated as being, it's truly the impact is the differentiation. It's not about performance, it's about visibility. And then introverted employees are overlooked, which essentially means you're at a great risk of overlooking talent. So, and you've got these potentially high talent, quiet, introverted people now assigned a harmful rating. So what ends up happening is that performance that the system intended to address is not addressing it at all, and you're losing talent. So I want to open up a Q&A session.
So for these evaluations, do the employees get an opportunity to rate themselves, and are their colleagues who work on similar projects also rating them, or is it strictly just managers?
It is 360,
Okay.
subordinates, peers, managers. So yes, I didn't touch on that in the slides. There is a pre-process that includes that 360 evaluation. But
Are there, let's say for instance, an employee is rated really high, so I know there's like a tier system. Are there using any type of like bonuses, like hey, if you rated top quality, you get a bonus and that sort of thing to kind of
so
give?
your question is along the lines of the rating as applied to the reward,
Yeah.
which is commissions, bonuses.
Mhm.
Yes, there's
Okay.
a net positive effect to increase bonus, promotion, raises.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if you don't like this rating and ranking system, what do you recommend?
What you recommend is that you eliminate it, and Microsoft eliminated it in 2014. And what you're left with is, you're left with basically, there are systems, evaluation systems that are on the merits of the individual. They support innovative companies that you're just eliminating a pitting against each other system. So there are existing performance evaluation systems. The bulk of them are the one-on-one true evaluation between the employee and the manager. It includes the development plan. You do not have to reinvent a wheel and say, oh my God, what do I use? There are already these tools and systems in place. What people do, management, when they choose this system, is create a great risk to the company. And so to eliminate it, as Microsoft did, is the recommendation, the suggestion. Does that answer your question? Okay, Kat.
How come then it's not a managerial training issue versus a system issue?
The research talked about this. There are HR websites, consultants in this field that have addressed performance, and they stated that if you have a development plan for an employee with a process of open and regular feedback, that you can address performance that way, and that a negatively performing employee has a greater chance to succeed in that network than if you put them with a low rating, you didn't speak to them, because basically what you did is you made this person wait for this annual process and tank them. And you're actually worse off. Did that answer your question? No.
How do these other systems get rid of the bias? One of the things you talked about is like, for example, my last job, there was some sexism involved because, and actually I think it harmed the females more than it harmed me, but some of my female coworkers, if they left to pick up their kids, it was okay because they're looked at as females, they're homemakers, they're allowed. I have a very unorthodox family. My nephew was with me, raised my sister, and we were with them. It became an issue. So how does that get addressed in the new system in a way that it wasn't addressed in the old system?
And I want to make sure I understand your question. I have about 30 seconds to do it. So the bias against the constraints that like a parent has, how they are, as management, we communicate to address the need for their flexibility so they're not punished?
And within the rating system, the new way versus the old way.
Okay, and the new way is this open evaluation of setting goals, having an understanding of a person's restrictions, that they have certain hours, that they make a commitment to those hours, that they're known to either come in at a certain time, leave at a certain time, that they not, have a process that waits an entire year to say, well, you took off too many times too early to go. So it's between a manager and employee to set up sort of the ground rules, and it's also up to the company to set the culture. And a lot of companies have become more aware of the need to be flexible because of the family commitments. And so it's a cultural adaptation that a company makes as a whole for that, as opposed to put that burden on the individual manager to manage. But they'll need to if that person is excessively absent. Did that answer?
Yes.
Okay. So the next steps, again, in your role, at 30 seconds here, you're going to graduate from a phenomenal program. You're going to make contributions within your organization. Have a voice. Be comfortable. You may not be the policy setter, but you're certainly in an organization that rewards talent, able to speak up, give suggestions, ideas, and you really need to do that. I lost my last slide. What happened? Okay. How do I get to the last? All right. Anyway, just go forward and make the challenges, that are needed so that talent is really, truly preserved.
Well done, Michelle. Thank you, ma'am. Fantastic. Excellent job.
All right.
Okay, come on up and receive your accolades. What'd you like? What'd you do well, right?
I like when I asked my question, you paraphrased my question, okay, my understanding is this, and then you answered my question. That was good control.
Michelle
answering my
demonstrated great listening skills
Yes.
through her paraphrasing.
Mhm.
What else?
I've never heard of this before. It could be because just being a nonprofit, but I learned something new today.
Yeah, great. So good knowledge. What else?
I really liked how calm you were, because I think the first time I saw you give a presentation, you were kind of like, you were all over the place a little bit. But right now, you were in control, you made eye contact with everyone, and
Yeah, she was a true professional
you.
today.
Thank you.
Excellent growth. Yes, thank
I like
you.
how you piggybacked off prior examples. So you're trying to engage other potential supporters.
Which really demonstrates her ability to be present in the moment, right? Referring to Raman's previous presentation about productivity. Excellent. What else? What else did you like?
Just poise,
Poise.
natural confidence that you took care of, the subject matter, that went smoothly, did a great job.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. And Karen, last comment.
You were very clear in your position throughout the presentation. I understood exactly your points and your arguments and why you were for removing this system.
Awesome. Thank you. I liked what your poll up front at the beginning. How many of you are familiar with this system? I think that was a great way to kind of assess very quickly your audience's knowledge level with this. I also liked your layout of the material and positioning of questions. Michelle did something that was, I think, really brilliant. She said, if you have a quick question as we're going throughout, feel free to raise it, but we're going to have a Q&A section at the end, so if you can hold until then, that would be great. Because there are those little tiny questions that come up that bog you down in order to prevent you from listening. So if you give the audience that opportunity, you saw that we didn't really interrupt, but the opportunity was still there for us as well. I liked the concept that there was no transparency, strict confidentiality with regards to that process. I liked the bias that you brought up as well. And I liked the identification of next steps. I think those were a good reminder of who we are as an audience, SMC MBA students, and what we can do in the future. So overall, the full package was there, especially strong in the beginning and in the end. Suggestions for change. What would you like to see or do differently, Jerry?
Less, more concise bullet points.
Yeah, so this,
I worried about that when I did that.
the slides were the weakness of the entire presentation. The red background is very difficult for us to read. You've got to go with a blue background, a white background, but red is the one that's, studies would show are the most difficult to read. Especially the way it faded, and just the bullets were way too wordy. There was too much on the page. You were using them more probably for notes for yourself than they were messages that were being communicated to us. So, so those are my comments about slides. Overall, that was the weakest part of the presentation. Other than that, it was very good.
I like how you
Yes?
moved around the room, but a few times you actually turned your whole back to us and faced
Okay.
just there. So maybe just a sideways turn.
Once again, that's because there were so many words on the slide. If you have to use the screen, use this screen and maintain your eye contact with your group. This can be your teleprompter right here. Okay, what else? Anything else?
I
Yes.
think just from a managerial perspective, you said your employees can be great, mediocre, or trash.
Yeah.
And that can be hard for managers to hear.
Okay.
So I have your trash covered.
Yeah. And later you use the term underperformers, and that's what we need to hear. Interesting how that word has come up in 2 presentations today. Let's see. Lastly, from me, I would have liked to have heard your recommendation before you went into Q&A. So give us the close, respond to questions, and then give us that call to action. I think that we missed your final slide. It's because it somehow moved from slideshow into non-slideshow version.
Okay.
So however that happened. But don't let that bother you. Just say, so let me just wrap up. Remember that importance of that final close. Okay, overall, great job. Michelle, thank you.